Seeing the East Siders. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay, I'm just going to go on to regs and consents because I see Todd Webley is here with us. But I did want to acknowledge, and I forgot to, and I meant to do it, the presence of Mike Pearce here, who's an honorary alderman from the City of Christchurch and who used, stand up, Mike, who used to be Mayor of Christchurch in Dorset in England. So I just wanted to extend a very, very warm welcome to you, and my apologies for not acknowledging you earlier, but lovely to see you here. Mike's visiting this Christchurch.
Is it all right if I just say a few words?
Probably not, but go ahead anyway. Come up here and say it, Mike.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
No, come up here and say it. Come and sit at this Christchurch City Council meeting.
Can I thank you all for, especially to Vicky, for inviting me to your council meeting this morning. I'm very grateful indeed to be able to visit Christchurch on our visit to seeing my parents and that in Australia, and we've just taken a little side holiday, you know, so that I can be able to join you today. It's been a pleasure, actually. I found with my wife we've had nothing but good response to everything we've done. We've actually thoroughly enjoyed our few days here. And can I also say that the people of Christchurch, although I don't know if you've heard about it, but we were all so sad to hear about the earthquake. We tend to think that those things don't happen only in other people's back gardens. But coming over here and seeing it and seeing the damage that has been done and the work that you have on behalf of the people, your community, getting Christchurch back on its feet again, getting the community behind you and working hard to bring Christchurch back to where it should be and where it was before. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. You're welcome in Christchurch anytime.
Can I also say that I was chair of planning. I was also chair of the policy and resources. So it's very difficult to work out how much you can pay to the planning side to build things and that without getting the community on your back. So I've got a broad bag and I've taken it for 20 years. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Regs and Consents Committee we're going to move on to, Dave. Okay.
Look, we have a number of Part A matters to consider. The first one is the adoption of the annual report to the Alcohol Licensing and Regulatory Authority. We're required each year to prepare and send to the ARLA a report of our district licensing proceedings and operations during that year, and we're required to do that within 3 months of the end of our financial year. So the report is appended, and I would move the committee and staff recommendations set out in point 2 in that report.
Thank you. And seconded by Tim. Okay, item number 1. Item number 2.
2 is the temporary alcohol ban in the Riccarton Racecourse area. Yep. The staff recommendation is set out in point 3 of the paper on page 221. It's essentially providing for the same provisions that we have at the Trotting Cup event at Addington to apply for Riccarton on the occasion of the New Zealand Trotting Cup, Galloping Cup.
Yep.
So it's pretty straightforward, and it's a temporary one because we would have to go through the consultative process to actually eventually make it a part of our bylaw.
Yep, and it's been requested also by the local community board. Right, I'll put that. Those in favour please say aye. Those opposed carried.
The next one,
I'm assuming councillors East and Scandal are moving all of these, Megan, just for the sake of... they'll let us know if they're not.
the third one relates to the police, delegation to the police to enforce the public bylaws, public places bylaw with respect to vehicle windscreen washing activities. It's been brought to our attention that the police don't have quite the authority to deal with these the issues surrounding windscreen washing activities, and that by giving them delegation to enforce our bylaw, they have a greater ability to control this activity, which in itself has been as much an issue of health and safety. And then we also have the allegation of some gang activity also being associated with window washing.
Let's just stick to known facts, shall we? So we've got Claire, have we? And Todd, do you want to come forward? We've got Todd Webley from the police and Claire Bryant.
So the staff and committee recommendation is set out on points 3.1 to 3.5 on page 229. So
we've got the staff, the committee and the police in agreement on the proposed action. Are there any questions? Paul?
To the recommendation.
Do you want to tell us what it is, and then I'll just go back to questions?
It's just with respect to washing the car windscreens for payment of reward, perhaps just actually any activity that causes these sort of issues around for getting payment or reward, so rather than just windscreen washing.
No, you're way outside the scope of this report. You're venturing into an area upon which we have no information, no report, no staff recommendation. No, good try, but you're not going to get away with that.
Perhaps I could ask the police a question with relation.
You can ask the police a question on this subject, Paul. Would you like to? On this subject?
On this subject?
No, on this one, Paul, yeah.
Well, it is on this subject, so about payment and reward.
No, this one on window washers, yeah. You have to try harder. Yanni.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge 3.5 and the work that the neighbourhood policing team are doing. And I just wondered if you could elaborate on, it's one thing to come down on someone for doing something that you don't want, but actually addressing the cause of the behaviour as the starting point for changing the behaviour, to me, is really important. And I know that you obviously have thought about that because 3.5 discusses that a little bit, but could you just elaborate what council and the police are working towards in terms of understanding why people are doing this and looking at other initiatives or other interventions that actually understand why people do it and try and come up with alternative ways of encouraging better behaviour?
Yes, definitely. I can definitely answer that question. Obviously, yes, we are seeking authority because we're requiring an enforcement tool to be able to discourage this behaviour. We also we're looking at ways to encourage not to do this behaviour, and exactly what you're saying around early intervention. We've been working with a number of other agencies, including the council, in identifying youth that are not engaged in education courses or work, and coming up with strategies and implementing that. So, Mike, can you hear me all right? In particular, youth that are not engaged in schools, we're actually working with the Ministry of Education at the moment. They've actually created a team specifically dealing with the issues in around the Linwood area. We've identified a lot of issues in around that Jolly Street, Thomas Street area there. So we're doing some intensive work with not only the youths but the families. So we're utilising the Ministry of Education. Linwood Link have been coming on board with that. CYDP, Canterbury Youth Development Program, which are now based at the Phillipstown Community Hub, the former Phillipstown Primary School. We're working alongside them. A number of window washers have been taken under their umbrella, and we're also liaising with them in relation to how we can help with that. University of Canterbury, Professor Billy O'Steen. I've been working with for quite some time now. He's actually somehow put this into one of his courses and coming up with initiatives, and they presented at the community hub, along with the police and other interested members, on initiatives that we can implement. And particularly there's a sporting initiative that looks like we might be able to get up and running by using another student doing another course, CPIT, particularly the trades side of things, and particularly I'm working with, I've been talking with Hemi to Hemi in relation to Māori and getting Māori into trades, and we've been utilising that. Local businesses have come on board, and we've actually got a couple of years of some work in relation to, I won't name the business, but the local businesses has come on board and they're seeking nominations from us, which has been fantastic. Recruitment agencies, there's about 160 recruitment agencies in Christchurch right now, screaming out for staff. So we've been involved with that. We've helped develop a simple one-page CV. We've implemented that down at the community centre, Phillipston Community Centre. We take views down there, we help them fill it out, and we deliver it. So we're pretty much very hands-on. I had to write some of the stuff down because there's so much going on. We organised a barbecue outside in the Eastgate Mall car park recently, and that was actually to encourage them to come over and talk to us. And that worked really well. And as a result of that, we're planning to do something very similar, probably outside Linwood Link. We're having a number of these other agencies that are involved with us. While they're coming over for their sausage, while you're here, come and talk to this person or talk to this person, and likewise. The truancy side of things. Early on, when we were looking at this problem, or issue, I should say, a local petrol station chain got on board, and we were actually looking at trying to legitimise this. Put these youths through forecourt etiquette courses, give them safety equipment. That was met with a number of hurdles, which unfortunately didn't eventuate for a number of reasons. But there was a planning around that. So in saying that we want to enforce it, we also want to discourage it. We want to get youth and those sort of people into legitimate work courses and education. So there's a number of streams. I probably haven't named them all, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of work around that side of it.
Just to add to that, we've met with the police on this issue after the regs and consents meeting with the Billy O'Steen from the University of Canterbury, with Rachel Wright from UC Innovators, with Te Ora Ho, and we've got another meeting scheduled for Thursday of next week. So if you want to come, you're very welcome, looking at a number of specific suggestions that arose out of that.
And particularly, I think we've invited the organiser of High Tech Youth, which is running in Dunedin and Auckland and throughout some of the islands. He's been invited. We're talking with him to initiate a similar sort of program here in Christchurch. So yeah, I hope that helps.
So that part's being done quite well. Yep, Ali.
Can I ask, is there a degree of self-responsibility? Where are the parents and families in this? I mean, what I'm hearing is that there is a massive amount of resource and clearly cost attached to that as well. And I don't want to dismiss any of the difficulties or situations that these kids are in, but surely you have to draw a line somewhere and say, enough is enough. There's self-responsibility and family support that is required here.
Oh, no, definitely. And like I said, we've recognised, we've identified a specific area within the community that a lot of this youth and family issues, and that's in around that Linwood area. And so we're working with the families. It's not just the youth, it's the family. One of the issues we've got around this behaviour is the fact that it is very lucrative and very encouraging, because some of these boys are making up to $60 to $70 an hour by window washing. So to discourage that is very difficult. And there would be an argument, there would be some people out there that would say, oh look, good on these guys, they're getting off their butts, they're getting out there, they're trying to do an honest day's work. And look, we recognise that side of it. Unfortunately, the behaviour around that, and it's not just the window washers, because the window washers are attracting their mates, and you're getting up to 20 to 30 odd youths at intersections that are bored with nothing to do and causing a lot of disorder. But you're right, there is a point, and I can give you a good example. I am working with a boy, he is 16 years old, and we're looking at trying to get him into trades. He was very keen. He was, unfortunately, he slipped up a little bit. He's currently in custody. But, and I know what you're saying, is there a point when we give up? Well, I'm still going to work with this boy. He's still, I'm working with our youth age or youth services section, and we've got him on our radar, and we're going to try, and we're going to keep going. And I mean, he was willing to help out. You're right, his family support, not very good. Very difficult circumstances for him. He's obviously influenced by others, so it's just, and sometimes, and if you, I've spoken to adults that have been youth offenders and right through, and then they said sometimes it's that 20th time that someone's spoken to them and dealt with them and said, look, hey, you can't do this, we've got to, it's that last 20th or 30th time they've gone, yeah, you're right. So,
is there gang involvement here?
Yeah, there's gang involvement, yes.
Right, so that's a fact.
Oh, look, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Glenn.
Thank you. My question's around the funding. So I'm pretty happy with how much Hagley Ferrymead gets as a board by way of social development, and that will include youth development, as with all our boards. Just wondering how well connected that is with some of the agencies working in this space.
Kia ora, I'm Shupai, working in the Hagley Ferrymead ward.
Yeah.
There is a lot of connection with what is going on with Todd and his team. I'm on the neighbourhood safety panel for Phillipstown that sort of extends out. Sorry.
Thank you. I was wondering who was going to do that. I had my money on Ali or Tim.
I was just talking about the neighbourhood safety panel that is based in Phillipstown but has been following the developments in the Linwood area and largely at that Eastgate Mall. So we have held meetings from a council perspective with Eastgate Shopping Centre, local policing staff, local youth workers who are working in school and in the wider area to try and link the young people, a lot of whom are on that margin, who could go either way, into programs that will mean we don't have to end up with the expensive interventions. We have a Linwood youth development worker who is funded through Metro funding as a key local project, and they're able to work with the different youth organizations to sort of say, hey, this is what's going on here. So some of the young people you're talking about with the window washing issue have worked alongside youth workers, and they've been able in some cases to get 1 or 2 young people to participate in local youth activities without having to go down that extreme pathway. I think one of the issues that the youth workers do find is there aren't a lot of whānau and family workers in the area. And so they find they're working with the young person, they're working with the community in terms of out of school, they're working with the schools in school, but they don't have that support from whānau workers who are working with the family, which was your concern, around how do they better manage the dynamics of young boys and girls who need that extra support. Large number coming from Maori families, and so we have talked to He Orangaponamu, the Naitahu, around what is it we could possibly do together to get a Maori response for Maori young people.
Thanks. Paul.
Just really to thank the police for the work that you are doing in Linwood. We're really pleased with some of the advances you've made towards actually helping the youth out, and this is a shameless plug, but I'm dropping off the side of the Les Mills building tomorrow, and if you want to give some money towards the foundation of the youth development, I have a web page on the Give a Little page.
Right, that's a shameless and not a question, clearly.
But it's an important issue that we actually support our youth, and I don't think there's enough attention given to these organisations to actually help these kids out.
Thank you for that question. Andrew.
Assuming that we make this decision today, and that obviously gives the police the ability to enforce this bylaw, yes. One of the things that has been said to me in my various conversations around this particular matter has been that often by the time a member of the public makes the police aware that there's a problem in a particular location, by the time the police are able to get there, the problem has dissipated or the activity has ceased. What sort of strategies will you put in place, or how will you be able to perhaps more effectively deal with this as a result of the recommendation that's in front of us today?
Yep. Well, as I've mentioned, I mean, this is only one tool of many that we want to implement. I can rest assured that the reason we want to enforce this bylaw is it is before the issue or the problem is come to our attention through disorderly behaviour or intimidation. So the mere fact of window washing is an offence that should be stopped. So in the past, we have had to wait till a fight's broken out, or someone said, I've just been intimidated, or my wing mirror has been smashed off my car. And you're right, by the time we get there, they've just scattered to the four winds. So we're kind of using this enforcement tool as a prevention measure. That's a bit like the broken windows theory. It is dealing with that. Although, you know, we have to acknowledge the window washing behaviour on its own is not a serious matter. There are definitely some safety implications for these people that are doing it. It is looking at the future, and if we allow that behaviour to continue throughout the day or weeks, we are going to start getting those other issues arising. I might use this time too to point out too, and I think there was an issue around that. There was a concern that youth are going to end up with a conviction. I'd like to rest assured that the Children and Young Persons Family Act still would be applied here, and if it is a youth, 16 and younger, they will not be summoned and they will not be required to go to court. It'll be what's called a youth aid matter, and they'll be referred to our youth aid section, and that in itself is a way of us identifying a youth that needs some of these other interventions that we're talking about, which we'll be implementing. It will be the rare occasion a youth would have to be fronted up to youth court. The only circumstances that we can think of that would happen is they're already on some other serious offences where the window washing bylaw offence would be added to it. It will not be just a one-off only, you're a youth, you've never been in trouble with anyone before, you're going to go to court. It will be a youth that it will be an ongoing problem that we haven't been able to address.
Okay, thank you.
Hope that helps.
Pauline. Yeah,
thank you. Thanks for everything that you're doing in the community there. And I know the grassroots approach is the only way to go in bringing everyone together. Look,
hi, Spike.
I'm just
good timing.
Hi. So
Sorry,
you mentioned youth, but they're not all youth.
Not.
So this bylaw will make this a prohibited activity then.
Yes, that's right.
And I noticed 6.1 says without permission from the council.
Yes.
Will there be any way people could apply and be granted permission?
I'll have to hand it over to Claire.
No, well, you know, without predetermining any sort of decision by staff on that matter, the reality is that the staff, when they are issuing permits for activity under the Public Places bylaw, take safety into consideration, and under these circumstances there's no traffic management plan. They're actually on the streets without a traffic management plan. A permit wouldn't be approved under those.
Right, so we're basically going to ban this activity, and even though you did state that there's some people who think it's quite a good thing, they can get their windscreen washed at an intersection. Do we have to consult on this, or it just tags it onto the bylaw?
Well, to some extent, I guess we would consult on the Public Places bylaw in the regular review process, and did originally when it was set up. And of course, this is they are undertaking a commercial activity in the sense that they do expect to receive an income from it. They do expect some money in exchange for the service, and so that is banned as part of the bylaw. You know, so as an activity which is in effect expecting it's in effect a commercial activity, and yes, the bylaw does ban commercial activity already. We would be, and consultation on this bylaw occurs as it gets reviewed. It's due in 2017.
We did ask, however, at the committee about if somebody does this and they get, the aim of this was to discourage it. So if they did it, they were maybe 17 or 18 or 20, that the first one would not be a visit to the court. But it was actually Spike who answered it, and he said no.
No, we're doing, you know, yeah, we have a discretion, and obviously, and we have done, we're implementing a warning phase.
Yeah.
You know.
The question is that, if I can finish that here's these kids out there earning money, and we know we've got an issue with people begging in the city and stuff like that. Here they're earning money. We're going to stop it. Where are they going to get that money from that actually they've just become accustomed to getting?
They can get a job.
No, but in the short term, and
well, that's what the meetings were about.
so this is the risk of actually stopping this activity, isn't it?
And that's why the work was being done.
What you're talking about there is we call it displacement. So we're displacing one type of behaviour and creating another one. And that's why we're implementing a lot of other initiatives to mitigate that. Sure, we may have other offences committed because we've done this, but I like to call it positive displacement. In fact, that we're decreasing the behaviour, all the behaviours surrounding the youth activity.
Are you saying that it's pretty much the same people doing this, and how many are there?
Well, numbers are very hard to attribute. There was definitely a core group, and there was what we were noticing is the reason that I became involved is because I'm the sergeant in charge of the Phillipstown Neighbourhood Police Team, and in about mid 2013, as the intersection of Aldwins and Buckley's Roads it seemed to be where it sort of originated. It then grew throughout the city, and we started seeing intersections down Morehouse Ave, fast as Northcote, and QE2 Drive. So we're not actually just looking at a Linwood, Phillipstown Linwood issue. We're looking at a citywide issue, and we are aware that it did spread throughout the city, and the numbers of use actually increased exponentially over a period of time. You know, we're expecting that there will probably be a small percentage of hardcore, just, oh, we'll keep doing this and we don't care about enforcement and bylaws and things like that. But that's the group that we obviously want to target for, obviously discourage and then also encourage to do something legitimate.
That if this is supported today, the message would be to go out to people in their cars and say, well, don't pay them,
definitely.
That's the end of it, isn't it?
I mean, you know, like I said, some of the information we're getting back, people just feel like they have to pay just to avoid any reprisals. There's an intimidation factor. There are people that will not drive through certain intersections because they believe that window washers will be there.
Okay, Paul's got one last question, and then I'm aware that we're going to wind up as part of the meeting very shortly.
This is an actual question. Is it true to say that allowing this activity to occur is actually exposing these young people to gang mentality, initiation into gangs? Have you seen much of that?
That is definitely, that's a hard one to answer because.
Yeah. And don't feel like you have to.
But actually, I can say there has been a gang element to it. We have seen on occasions, we believe that some of these youths have been what we call taxed. They've been allowed to work at that certain intersection because a certain gang may control it. Again, a lot of this is anecdotal because you talk to these guys, they will not tell you that they are being taxed. They will not say that we're working for a gang. But there's definitely circumstantial evidence that would suggest that is occurring.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, is there any debate, or can I just put the motion? There is debate. Okay, Ellie.
Thank you. I think that I find part of this quite difficult to get my head around because it seems very, very black and white to me. At the risk of sounding heartless, which seems to be a badge I wear often, this is a no-brainer. These kids are at risk of hurting themselves, of hurting others. There is quite clearly a very strong suggestion of
Ellie,
gang involvement.
You can address it to the rest of the council rather than just pick on Todd.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry about it. No, forget it. It's all right. We'll move on. That's fine. I've said what I want to say.
my view on this is I support a twofold approach. Firstly, I do support the upholding, or rather the empowering of the police over this. Clearly there's a problem. I can think of one intersection, the window washers are like ants over sugar. We need to deal with this, but we also need to take a long-term developmental approach. I do agree partly over that individual responsibility, but not everyone's developed the tools to take responsibility. So we actually do need, I think, to act as a council to keep working through our agencies with our partnerships and funding to take that long-term view. And so I think it's not quite, obviously this is what's before us, but we actually need to work at the other side of the equation in the proactive space as well. In that regard, I commend to you the work of people such as Bevan Seal, doing great stuff in the city. And I think that that's the kind of approach the council needs to take.
Okay, thanks. Paul, Yanni, then Andrew, and Paul, Yanni. Okay, Paul, Yanni, Andrew, Dave. Yep.
I'm going to support the recommendation today, and mainly because I want to support the police, who have clearly shown they're not just actually want to enforce this rule. They want to actually engage with these youths and make a difference in their lives and put them in a better direction. And we've seen some great examples here today of actually how they've actually done that. So I think actually enable them to actually get this issue under control and keep these youths safe on these intersections. Gives them a further opportunity to bring them into some of these other programs that can actually send them on a better path. I think we just need to get behind it and support it.
Thank you. Yanni?
Thank you. I'd probably be the last person that would support giving the police more powers to take on our young people. In fact, I made my name actually challenging the police to the Human Rights Commission over the under 25 scheme. But actually, when you look at the difference in approach here, it's quite staggering. And that's why I will support this approach, because not just being hard on people without understanding the cause of the behaviour, to me, is really important. And addressing the causes of behaviour is the best way, in my view, to get behaviour change. And enforcement should only be a measure and a mechanism of last resort. And what we've heard today is the fairly extensive programs and processes that the community, the police, the council are looking at to address the cause of this behaviour. And I wholeheartedly endorse that approach. It's really interesting to reflect on the Phillipstown policing team. It wasn't so long ago that the police had a very different approach to Phillipstown, which was to be very hard and clamp down. And as a resident, many people were actually stopped for no reason at all other than just being in your car, sitting in your car, drinking a Red Bull or a can of Coke, and you were interrogated as to what you were doing there. The approach that the police have taken in more recent years is very different. It's actually working with these local communities to identify the issues that are relevant to them. It's building confidence and trust in the organisations that exist in our city, whether it's government departments or community agencies, to help the people that need the help. So I'm very supportive of this approach. I originally thought maybe it's not such a big deal. I'd driven through a lot of these intersections myself and had never felt scared or intimidated. It wasn't until the police came to our community board and actually showed us the video footage of what was happening at these intersections that I understood how frightening it is for people to be intimidated and how dangerous it is for these young people and others who are doing this activity. So in my view, the evidence is pretty compelling that we have to act on this issue. I do think there is a wider issue in our city in terms of what's happening in some communities around the rising inequality post-earthquake, the issue around where we prioritise our spending as we recover, and the impact that things like affordable housing have on families and on communities in some of the poorest areas of our city are having a pronounced impact. And I again commend the work that's being done with YCD around the youth homelessness issue or the transiency issue, because that is all part of this picture. Enabling young people, regardless of their circumstance, to contribute positively in our city should be, I think, our top priority. And so I just wanted to endorse the approach that's been taken. I do support this because it is being done with the people that are most affected to try and find solutions to what is, I think, a very real and legitimate problem.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, what we've got in front of us today is a practical and pragmatic and inclusive approach to what clearly is a problem. Knowing that this matter was coming in front of us, I've deliberately driven through some of the affected intersections over the last few weeks. And whilst, and certainly acknowledging the comments that Councillor Johansson has made, I haven't felt intimidated myself. I've seen behaviour that it's easy to see why a person would avoid those intersections or would feel a need perhaps to lock their car doors as they go through those intersections or whatever. And from what we've heard this morning, clearly this is a far bigger issue than just people washing windows at intersections. There are very complicated and complex social issues behind this. And from that point of view, I'd like to acknowledge that the work that the police and our staff have done in working to achieve good social outcomes as they address this. I think a heavy-handed approach possibly would have unintended outcomes. The approach that's been described to us today certainly is inclusive and works to good social outcomes from something which is perhaps a symptom of other social problems as well as being a problem in itself. So I certainly support what we've got in front of us today as a way of dealing with this, and I'm particularly happy to support it in the context of those wider pieces of work that we've heard about today. I also understand the call for parents and families to step up to support some of these young people who are involved in this activity and maybe by implication other activities as well. But I think there needs to be an acknowledgement that there isn't the capability or the capacity in those families and support networks to necessarily always do that. And in fact that some of these people maybe don't have well-functioning families or support networks at all. So very pleased to support this, particularly in the context of that wider, really valuable work that we've heard about today.
Thank you. And Dave, to wind up the debate.
Thank you. Look, this matter has had quite an airing for quite some time in the Regulations and Consents Committee, and I'm very comfortable with the debate and discussion that's been had at that meeting. I think for me one of the key things when we look at a lot of our bylaws is Council's ability to enforce the bylaws that we have on our books. And I've been on record as saying that I think some of our bylaws, we create bylaws, but we overlook the ability to enforce them. At times we place a huge burden on our enforcement staff, and I am very complimentary of the efforts of that unit in enforcing our bylaws. But in this case here, I think it's entirely appropriate that we extend the ability for the police to actually enforce this part of a bylaw. I've been on record in saying it is a particularly unusual situation with health and safety being one of the key attributes that we're trying to address here, and then we have alleged intimidation and a few other unsavoury activities that are being associated with it. So I'm very comfortable in supporting this motion today because I believe it does allow an organisation like the police to actually be able to deal with this situation in a professional and far greater capacity than we can at council level. So I'm very happy to formally move the adoption of this part of the report, which I think we've already perhaps
Thank
got
you.
on
So
the books.
I think we've got a mover and a seconder, haven't we, Megan? Yep, cool. Okay, so I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried unanimously, was it?
Through fairly quickly.
Well, actually, just let me check that because I'm aware that there's a 12 o'clock opening. Is there a lot of discussion on dogs? Or dogs?
The dog, it's
dog
really,
control
again,
policy?
another requirement.
So, okay, is everybody comfortable with it? Okay, right, so it's moved, Dave, seconded by Tim. I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried. The report as a whole be adopted. Those in favour, please say aye. Those opposed, carried.